Okay, so today we're going deep on something pretty wild surrounding Pete Hegseth, President Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, there's been some recent allegations against him, and we're going to really break down the sworn affidavit that was sent to senators.
Right, and this is dated January 18th and comes from Danielle Hegseth, who is Pete Hegseth's former sister-in-law.
Exactly.
So this isn't just like, hearsay or chatter online. This is a formal legal document.
It is a sworn affidavit.
And it contains some pretty shocking claims. So, we're going to dive into the details of that. But I think it's important for our listeners to just understand, what's the significance of a sworn affidavit? I mean, why does this matter so much?
Well, legally, it holds a ton of weight, right? It's not just somebody saying something, offhand. It's a written statement that's been confirmed by oath or affirmation.
Oh, wow.
So that makes the person who made the statement liable for perjury, if the information turns out to be false.
Oh, right. Like they could get in legal trouble.
Exactly. And I think that's, you mentioned it comes from a family member, so that adds another layer.
Right. Like this is coming from someone who presumably, knew him fairly well. And that's significant.
Yeah.
And the timing of this is really critical, too, because we're talking about, President Trump's inauguration was on January 20th.
Yeah.
And this affidavit lands in the hands of senators on January 18th.
Right.
And get this, the Senate Armed Services Committee actually held a vote on Hegseth's nomination that same day, January 20th.
Yeah, that's the real issue here, right? You have this sworn testimony alleging these really, concerning behaviors, erratic, aggressive behavior, causing fear for safety.
Wow.
And then the vote on this really important nomination proceeds super quickly, it seems, right as this information is coming to light.
Right.
Typically you would think that allegations of this nature would, lead to a much more thorough review before any kind of committee vote takes place.
Absolutely. That just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You would want to, fully investigate these serious claims before making a decision like that.
Absolutely.
So our source is really expressing frustration here that despite the seriousness of this sworn affidavit, it might not be enough to actually stop Hegseth's nomination from moving forward.
Yeah.
And, we should also acknowledge that Pete Hegseth's lawyer, Tim Parler, has issued a denial of all these allegations.
Right.
He's actually dismissed Danielle Hegseth as, a, quote, far-left Trump hater.
Right.
So implying that there's some kind of political motivation behind this whole thing.
Right. Well, it's important to note that denial.
Yeah.
But the source that we're looking at here really emphasizes that, just because you discredit the person making the allegations, it doesn't, negate the existence of the statement itself.
Right.
Like that sworn affidavit, it's still a matter of record. Those allegations are still out there. It's out there, and it's, a legal document. And that's something that I think, the source here is saying, is potentially being overlooked in this whole process.
Yeah.
So to kind of recap, the core issue that's highlighted in our source is that this information, despite its potential seriousness, might be disregarded or seen as purely politically motivated, and that could allow this nomination to proceed without really thoroughly looking into these claims.
Exactly. And this all really begs the question. You have a sworn affidavit with these serious allegations. It's in the hands of senators before this big vote happens.
Right.
What should the standard be for considering this kind of information when we're talking about vetting people for these really important jobs?
Right.
Regardless of the political climate, it makes you think about the balance between, how quickly these political processes move and, the need for really doing your due diligence when you're evaluating these nominees for such important positions. Absolutely. And I think that's a question that, our listeners can really grapple with and think about, what is the right balance there? How do we ensure that, we're taking these allegations seriously while also, recognizing the need to move forward with these processes?
Yeah.
It's a tough question. And it's one that I think, we all need to consider as we, watch these nominations unfold.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
Definitely. All right. Well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.